are looking at some reasons why, the pros as opposed to really the cons, that we would want to learn a development language. Now, this may be as a first language or to add to the languages you are already familiar with, or even that you have mastered. This episode, this time, we want to talk about JavaScript. Now, why would you choose to learn JavaScript? Now, in particular, this is an interesting one because general purpose languages are usually what you want as your first language. And so this one is not really a general purpose language, but it could be. First question you have to ask yourself, depending on what you know about JavaScript, is it even possible to learn JavaScript per se? Because there's many options. There's a lot of frameworks and things like that that use JavaScript in some particular way, but they are effectively an extension of it or a modification of it. Now, what you want to do with JavaScript is you want to start with the basics. And it makes sense to pick a framework, for example, like jQuery or something like that, that is a general purpose framework. Now, if you are doing JavaScript as your first language, you're going to be challenged because you're going to have to use like Node or something like that. There's going to be something you're going to need to use that is allows you to build with just JavaScript, which really almost never happens, I have to be honest, because you need to actually have with that some sort of an HTML, CSS type of knowledge. You don't have to have deep, but enough because JavaScript lives in that tag world. But let's assume that you can do a basic web page. You can put together a page that displays some headers and input and divs and spans and stuff like that, because it is fairly easy to pick up, fairly easy to learn. And then you want to actually use JavaScript to make that front end pop or more snazzy or more functional. Now, once you got the basics of JavaScript, which is understand what is the general syntax, what does a function look like, what do variables look like, you think of the logical things that you normally step through in learning a language. How do you loop? How do you do conditionals? How do you return values? How do you pass values? Things of that nature. Those are your basics. You're probably going to want that framework because that's where you're really going to start getting directed power for JavaScript. You may even want to build into a library, using some sort of a library, or in learning it, there's maybe some value in building your own. Have a little tool set of your own that you can carry around. There's a couple of your JavaScript files that do common things. And those may be things like converting different types, like a string to an integer, or a string to a date, or to an integer, or vice versa. Or maybe it's some sort of like an address forming thing where you give it a city, state, zip, street, and it puts it into a nice little structure like a div or something like that. It's not; these are things that are not necessarily flashy. But what you can do is you can build common little scriptlets that you would end up using over and over and over again. And you're going to see these. You will, as you start running through some applications, you'll find that you will do the same task. You will solve the same problem many, many times. And so that may be a good place for you to build out that JavaScript knowledge. Now, once you have your sort of a common basis of knowledge, then you can jump into Node or Angular or React. I mentioned jQuery, Dojo. There's a bunch of JavaScript libraries out there. The popular ones right now really from a front end are going to be React Native, Angular. There are probably a couple others, but depends on where you're at. Take a look at like the job environment out there. What's out there? What kind of projects are out there? And that may help you select the specific framework that you want to work with. Now, regardless of what you pick, there are a lot of JavaScript adjacent or JavaScript related jobs and ways to leverage these skills. For example, once you know some basics about JavaScript, you understand particularly jQuery, because it was sort of the grandfather of some of these other JavaScript extensions. Once you understand that and the idea of working in a JavaScript in a stateless, effectively environment, then it's a little bit of a step up, but not too much to do Angular or React, and then understand how they work. Understand that environment that they build, basically, so that you are now in React. And even though you are writing JavaScript, it's React. It's a little bit different, but you're going to be very comfortable, I think, with it. So you could leverage that. And then if you said, I've been doing React for a while, but there's this Angular job, it's going to be probably close enough that you can leverage those skills and say, yeah, I'm used to this type of development. More specifically, these are the problems we've solved. And yes, you've solved them in a different language, but in doing so, you probably have the basis, the foundation to solve it in, for example, in Angular if you've already done it in React. Within JavaScript, one of the reasons it's value in learning it, and there are a lot of boot camps that focus almost strictly on a JavaScript type developer, is because there's a huge community. It's excellent for tutorials. You can find examples or whatever way you need to learn, almost as simple as do a search on how do I do XYZ, whatever it is, in JavaScript, and you will find examples, tutorials. You'll probably find the different frameworks and how you do it in those. And there are a lot of custom environments that have JavaScript as their basis, and you'll be able to work well within those also. Some of these can be low pay because it's not a high-end skill necessarily if you're doing JavaScript for the web. However, there are niche areas like if you get into NetSuite or Salesforce or tools like that have JavaScript as a sort of a basis script. If you're comfortable with doing that and writing that code, that means you're going to be comfortable with extending those environments. And those can actually be some fairly high-paying jobs, very niche skills, but again, they're very valuable if you can find the right place, if you're in that kind of market, if you're in that kind of geographical location. For JavaScript in specific, you really need certifications. That's going to be a great way for you to prove your worth and to build your value. Now, you can, as always, you can focus on these are the problems I've solved. These are the solutions that I've built. And sort of like, you don't even have to actually specify that it was JavaScript. But if it's in a JavaScript world, JavaScript job, a lot of times there's going to be a request for certification. A lot of times that will be the differentiator between you and everybody else applying for that job. Because there's a lot of people that'll do it, but not a lot of people that have certifications. Another thing you may want to do is look at some boot camps out there. There are some that will allow you to go really deep, usually in a specific type of JavaScript. For example, it may be Node, it may be Angular, it may be React, it could be jQuery, things like that, where it's maybe not as long as a typical programming boot camp, but you're probably talking still a couple of weeks where you're going to get really deep into the weeds and become out of it probably pretty solid developer for that. Now, the nice thing about it is that JavaScript's useful almost any project. If it's web-based, even if you're using a lot of the back-end stuff now, there are a lot of things that have JavaScript scripting as part of them. So it's a skill that when you learn, you don't have to be maybe as picky about which jobs you pick in order to keep that skill up to date and current and not get all rusty. Now, there is a lot of value too in using JavaScript and like a nice HTML, CSS, JavaScript combo for minimum viable products and proof of concepts and other quick solutions and demos that are maybe not like hardened production ready type applications, but can be functional, can prove that a solution can be built, and also can be done fairly quickly because, again, JavaScript, not a compiled language, it's interpreted, and so it's very easy to do a quick turnaround on trying out some code, see what it does, verify it, and then move on to the next step. In general, JavaScript not too long ago, even a few years ago, would probably not even be on anybody's radar as a language to learn as a developer, because it's not, at the time at least, it was not really a development language. However, at this point, it is something that if you don't have some rudimentary JavaScript knowledge, you're going to be very limited in what you can do in the modern world because it shows up so often. So while, it may not be the best first language choice, if it's something you're not really comfortable with and you've got a couple languages under your belt already, I think JavaScript is something you want to take a very close look at. Thanks a lot for your time. I hope this helped. As always, if you have any questions, shoot us an email at info@developreneur.com. We'd be happy to talk to you about what's your situation, what's maybe the best language or best skill for you to add next to your resume. Hope you go out there and have yourself a great day.
Well, hello, this is Rob with Developreneur, also known as Building Better Developers. Wanted to announce that we have school.developreneur.com. Feel free to check it out if you like any of this information, any of the content that we've sent, and you would like to see more. You can come out, you can enroll for free. We have free courses. We've got places for you to get better at just learning a technology, our how-tos. You can work on your business skills. We can help you with becoming a better developer, as in coding and things like that. A lot of the stuff you've seen on YouTube, we also have out at school.developreneur. We just have it in a little more of a educational format and a way for you to track your progress as you move forward becoming a better developer.